Hi, everybody. This is Steve Monday, Chief Forecaster for Rowan County Weather. As you know, I've been working with the Charlotte FC for the first two seasons of the team's existence and covering their matches, and I've been very honored to do so. And one of the things I like to do is promote what we call grassroots sports in a way, sports where the folks that are going to be the stars of tomorrow are coming along. And one of the ways that Charlotte FC is doing that is they have a farm system, in a way, if you will, that's called the Charlotte FC Academy. And I'm delighted to be joined by Coach Jason Osborne today to speak with him about the Charlotte FC Academy. And I also want to talk to him near the end about really ways that some folks in Rowan County, the young guys and young men and women that are playing around high schools and different things like that in Rowan County, can maybe work on getting their next steps going to potentially reach it to the next level. Coach Osborne, thanks so much for joining.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Coach, just before we get started, so for folks that don't know Jason Osborne, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have been with UNC Charlotte at one point. You've kind of worked your way through. So give us a brief history of yourself.
Yeah, I came to America at 18 on a college scholarship. I was previously with the Premier League Academy growing up. And upon my release from that club, I came to America to play college soccer. So after college soccer, played in the A-League for a couple of years, and then eventually got back into college soccer from a coaching capacity. So from Gardner Webb to UNC Charlotte, and I spent close to a decade at UNC Charlotte. So that's kind of my life in a nutshell.
Absolutely. So what were the steps that got you to be part of Charlotte FC? How did that work out for you?
Well, I think when Charlotte first announced they were going to have a franchise here in the city, we were very excited. As a college coach and a person that lived in and around the Charlotte area for a long time, it was I think the whole city and the whole city still is a buzz that this is bringing such attention to the sport, and the community is obviously getting very involved with our attendances and stuff. So right off the bat, I was very excited about it. In terms of how I got involved, I had numerous friends of mine, contacts of mine, work colleagues that had started to work their way into the MLS. And I was approached originally by the club as the head scout for the academy. So my time in college soccer was very much going out and identifying players to come and play at UNC Charlotte. And I think those the accolades over 10 years kind of gave me a resume that this guy might know a couple of things about it. And they approached me about the position when it came open 2 years ago, which I was excited to join.
So one of UNC Charlotte's, I would say, probably most recognizable alumni here in the area would be Brant Bronico, or as some folks call him, the mayor. Did he happen to play at the time you were there, or was he before you?
Yeah, Brant was there. Brant joined in 2013, so I just joined the university at the same time. He was recruited by Coach Kevin Langan. So me and Brant both went in as freshmen together, I guess you could say. But yeah, Brant, there was no doubt Brant was going to be a success with his mindset and the type of person he is. So I'm very proud to walk through the facility and the first team coming off the training field, and I get to see him now and again. So great person, great player.
So before we get into Charlotte FC Academy, just kind of piggybacking on a Brant Bronico question real quick, tell us about the growth you've seen from the time you first saw Brant to where he is now as a player.
How long we got?
As long as you need.
A long response. Yeah, Brant's a local player. He's from the Triangle area, Greensboro, kind of Winston area, High Point area, sorry. He came from a club called NC Fusion. It's a good developer of players. He came in, he was, like every freshman when they go to college, there's things they have to work on. It's a different level. They've gone from playing players their own age their whole life to now they're playing against guys 4 or 5 years older than him. So he had to evolve a little bit with his training habits and his position. He moved a little bit more into a wide area. And yeah, just as he progressed through university and through college, balancing lifestyle, obviously he met his wife at UNC Charlotte, Rebecca. So he really kind of over the years just grew and grew and grew. And I thought he'd go a lot higher in the draft personally, because he had such a great senior year and he was our captain. And believe it or not, he was a big goal scorer in college. He scored some unbelievable goals, very good 1v1 attacker. And as he's got older, he's become more of a central player in Latanzio's formation. And what I think has been the most impressive thing about Brant is his physical output in the game. You've probably seen him going and get the ball off the defenders, and then next thing you know, he's running beyond the strikers. He's very much a utility guy when it comes to that. But overall, just the amount of minutes he's played this year for this team, and Some big performances. I thought he was incredible in the Inter Miami game when Messi came into town. Over the course of the season, I'd put him up there, one of the top performers consistently for the club. So, yeah, just his maturity and the way he's grown, and he's had setbacks throughout his college career and professional career, and he just kept bouncing back. And he is a pretty ruthless competitor. So when I go out and watch the first team train, he's still the same Brant.
Indeed. So Brant Bronico is one of the stars of today. Folks are familiar with him. A lot of avid soccer fans are certainly familiar, especially the supporters of Charlotte FC Academy. I know the supporters do great in following literally everything Charlotte FC from the bottom to the top. But you're working with what will be the stars of tomorrow, especially for this club, and I'm sure many other MLS clubs at some point. So tell us a little bit about Charlotte FC Academy. I know you guys are still kind of in it, even though soccer season's over. For most, it's still going on for you guys. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so the academy really starts at a young age. 12 and 13. Those guys come in. Ahead of pre-formation, Patrick Dacker does a phenomenal job of bringing the local players from the area in a couple of times a week for different blocks throughout the year. Those players are evaluated. They get to see our environment. They get to come and see the facility. And then at U14, those players will sign to form a team for Charlotte FC. Now, that team will train together for a year. At U15, we now start our residency program where we have a couple of residency houses with the club, and then we also have homestay families that look after players that are too far away from Charlotte to live. So those players will move here and live with those families or live in one of our two homestay houses. And U15 is that age where we start that. So as you can tell, we've gone from finding the best players in Charlotte or within an hour of Charlotte to now the entire country. So the jump is very substantial in terms of 14 to 15. And then at U15, the next level is U17. So U17 is a double age group. So we put the U16 and U17s together. After U17, we have a U20 team, which is kind of the buffer between our U17s and the Crown Legacy team. Mm-hmm. And that U20 team plays in the UPSL division. The other teams I mentioned play in the MLS Next division. So yeah, we have a complete pathway all the way through to the Crown Legacy team and then the first team, starting at 12. So it's quite an ongoing project that most clubs have. Every year you try and find ways to improve it. There's lots of talks in different clubs of some clubs choose to have a U19 age group, some clubs choose to have a U16 age group. But for us here at Charlotte, we will have the discovery program for 12 and 13. We have a U14 team, U15 team, U17 team, U20 team in the UPSL, and then Crown Legacy first team.
You've got a couple of more games left with your team, I know, coming up. Really, I think before we started the interview, you were telling me, I believe tomorrow you've got some games going on, and then a few more over the coming weeks. So what do you got left there?
Yeah, we've got a couple of games this weekend. We have Atlanta United coming up. We just played NYCFC. Boys had a very good weekend. We beat NYFC 3-2 in a very tight game. And then we go to Atlanta in 2 weeks to play them down at their place. So the MLS Next League is made up of all the MLS clubs. And then they also have affiliate clubs of non-MLS teams. So we'll be playing Queen City Mutiny this weekend as well.
Awesome. So MLS Next, you've mentioned that a few times. And I know right around the MLS All-Star game, you had one of the MLS Next goalies for your team get a little bit of attention there. He made it into, I think, what was called the Goalie Wars or something along the lines of that, and battle for a pretty cool championship belt. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, he was actually a Crown Legacy player.
Yeah.
So that was Isaac Walker. So the Crown Legacy are our MLS Next Pro team, yep. Which kind of sits above the MLS Next League, which is the academy teams. So Isaac played at the University of Kentucky, came in, was part of the Crown Legacy team, and every year from now on, they'll be doing an MLS Next Pro All-Star weekend, which is aligned with the MLS Next, with MLS All-Star as well. And he was lucky enough to be selected as one of the best goalkeepers in the league. And he won the goalkeeper awards, which was pretty fun to watch.
Absolutely. So the team, I know, built a new facility. Well, I say new facility, it's really their first only facility that's just for Charlotte FC. It's not really part of the Carolina Panthers or anything like that. Are you guys in? Are you guys joined into that facility as well, or is that a separate facility from where you are?
Yeah, we're pretty much the only club in the league to have the setup we have when it comes to people and different groups within the organization. So we have everybody from Mr. Tepper's got an office, Abu, our president, Zoran, a sporting director, all the way through to our academy. So ticket sales, marketing, sports information, all of our content team. I mean, everybody's under the one roof. So it's a busy place. It's a fun place to work. It's exciting. At any moment, you could see Minty walk by as they're doing stuff with the content team, who are very busy. First team are in one part, we're in another part, and then everybody's kind of else is in the middle. But the actual facility itself is incredible. State of the art facility for weight room, regeneration, cafeteria. The first team fields are brilliant. They're in place right now. They've been in place for over a year now. We're still finishing the academy and second team fields. They should be online by January 24. So
how important is it to have a facility like that where you've got everyone together that's working their way again, from just stepping in the door to making it all the way to the MLS team in general? How important is that to be able to have that connection there with everyone under the same roof?
Yeah, I think there's obvious advantages when it comes to the way that an organization conducts itself, cross-contaminates amongst different areas of the company and the organization. Amazing for us as professional staff to be able to watch and learn from people in the first team and second team. But I think the most profound impact I've seen for my position as the under-17 coach would be the effect on the young players. Previously, the situation before this was parents would come and drop their player off at a field, a local field down the road, not necessarily a Charlotte FC field, and then pick them up right after training. And our contact time was pretty low. Now players are getting dropped off in the morning. They come in and they do their schoolwork in the classroom. They have their lunch. They get to use the weight room, and then we train. So just the ambitious player who wants to come in and be excited and see where the future looks for him, he has a direct kind of line straight down the corridor now, which we've never had before. So it's I think holistically it's just been a great boost for everybody in the organization. But for me personally, the effect on the players, which of course for the academies, the most important thing.
Right. I like the fact that you said, because I know some parents that are watching this, there's going to be folks that are watching this really because their child is working their way up through, again, like the high school ranks, and maybe their next step is college, or maybe they go, another direction and go MLS next or something like that. Or, there's so many different options now that weren't really here. I would even go back as far as 15 years ago in the United States. I mean, soccer has really grown this decade more than it has any other time for the United States here. I know in the late 90s, it kind of had that development starting to happen here in the country, especially with the Women's World Cup team at the time. But, it's really had a boom, really over the last 10 to 15 years here in America. And so for the parents that are watching this that, just heard you say, well, they go in, they do their classwork and all that. I'm sure that's, a big relief for a lot of folks to hear that, that's still held as an accountable thing, really, for the under groups that are working their way up. If there's ever a situation where you have a student that's, just not cutting the mustard in terms of classwork or anything like that, what do you do with them in general?
They get extra support. I think, all young players, especially in America. I grew up in a system in England that didn't really cater to education as much. And this was back in the 90s, obviously, but it was very much a time where they just, whoever survived the process would make it. Whereas in America and in the new age of pro sports, we're trying to help players grow collectively, and we're trying to help them grow holistically. So are they becoming better people? Are they becoming better students? For us, if a player is struggling, there's kind of a different course of action for each player. I don't think you can kind of paint one brush with every player. Is this player struggling because of behavioral issues? Is it because he's struggling in the classroom? Is the environment tough for them? Do they need to be on their own? Do they need to be in small groups? So I think every person's very different when it comes to how they're struggling in school,
Absolutely. So for your current players you're working with, what would you say has been the most? And we'll just go with this season that you're currently in. What would you say has been the most memorable thing for this season with the group you've currently been working with?
I think last weekend was a big weekend for us. NYCFC came into town and we had a really good game with them. The game was 2-2. We went up 3-2 and we had to really fight to get a result. And I really saw a group of players come together and grind out a result and really play as one, defending a lead. And after the game, they celebrated pretty heavily and deserved win. And when a team comes together like that and then they hit the ground at the end of the game because they're so exhausted, there's a little bit of solace there as a coach that they gave everything for that game. So that for me, in terms of performance, was probably the best part of the season so far. In terms of them as a group, I think watching them come into the facility for the first time was pretty special. I've got the double age group of the 07s and the 08s right now. So last year I had those same 07 players. So those players I've known for over a year now. So watching them, those guys that have had to train on different fields throughout the last couple of years and not really had a home, for them to now have a home and a locker room and a locker and a place where they can shower and eat and go to class, that was pretty cool. So they're probably the two things that I'd say stood out for me.
Sure. Now on the flip side, what would you say has been the most challenging for you?
The most challenging, I think now it's, we've got a core group of 25, 30 players that some of them are already learning remotely because they have come in from out of town, out of the Charlotte area. But now we've made a concerted effort for our whole under 17 and U20 age group to be training in the mornings. And now it's okay, how do we structure their day and get them as productive as possible, without getting bored, without getting distracted, without wasting time. That's been kind of the challenging one for us with that group. But they're doing a great job so far, and we're happy with the schedule and how things are working out. We just, when you're dealing with youth, you have to think, does this have longevity? Is this going to work for the next 9 months? Because the MLS next season for the academy is pretty long. That's 4 seasons, pretty short. We'll be heading to Arizona at the start of December for our kind of end of fall tournament. Then we're off for a few weeks in December. Then we come back and then we go basically January through to June. So that spring summer season is the long stretch. But so far it's going okay. I think as always, when you move into a new facility in any sort of organization with that many people and that many things going on, there's always room for improvement.
So you mentioned NYCFC a moment ago, and I kind of want to go back to them for just a moment. A lot of folks, their first real dive into MLS has probably been, I'd say, over the last 6 months. I mean, we can attribute it to Messi coming to the United States. Obviously, there's statistics that showed that the MLS subscription just skyrocketed on Apple TV when he came in, and that's all fine and well. But folks that have been following, they're still new to this, they're still watching. I'm sure, were some folks that watched the wild card match with the Charlotte FC team against NYCFC, and probably saw how that team is very aggressive, if you will. I mean, they like to play rough, and there's nothing wrong with that, really. I mean, if that's the kind of team, I guess you have to match their level. For the team that you played, or the version of the NYCFC team that your team played, are they kind of in that same mentality? Is that like something that's just throughout the organization, or?
Well, they were actually 2 different clubs. So it was New York Red Bulls that played against the first
that's
team.
right. I'm sorry. I got myself twisted up there.
I don't know whether I just waved there and made the sign, but yeah, that was against the first team. The first team played against New York Red Bulls. We played against FC. So, but no, yeah, most clubs play very similar to their first teams. A lot of it is the culture of the club, the culture of the players, the area of the country that they're from. Whether if you're playing against a Miami team, they'll have a certain way of playing and behaving. If you're playing against a team from New York, I think that's what kind of makes football.
Yeah.
I think other sports have the same kind of effect as well. When you're going to go play for the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, cold December night, it's going to be very different to playing Miami Dolphins. So, yeah, I think it's good for the league. I think it's good for football overall. And one thing about the MLS, there's so many different types of teams in our league.
Yes.
And it's a fun league to watch. It's a very fast tempo league. And as you can see from the different players, I know Miami are about to sign Suarez as well, hopefully. So another great player, a world name coming to the league to make it exciting as well. So yeah, but definitely it's part of the club.
Sure. Now, I know, from just some conversations I've had with your wife, kind of leading up to this interview, your wife's family lives here in Rowan County.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how familiar you are with the soccer scene in general here in Rowan County, but I've been reporting on a lot of the high school matchups here and things like that on Rowan County weather. And one of the things I found out, especially through interviewing a lot of the high school coaches this year, there is no club here in Rowan County for youth soccer. It's a big struggle, especially for the families who really just don't have the means to go to another county like Cabarrus County, for example, or Iredell County, Lake Norman, somewhere in that area, to join the clubs. So what would be your message to these individuals who really can't get access to the club, but probably still have a solid path if they really work hard enough to make their way in?
Yeah, to give you a bit of context, I lived in Salisbury for 13 years. So I lived in just outside of Faith. So I know schools. Yeah, I know Johnny's in Rockwell. Yeah, I know everything about Rowan County. I felt like I was definitely a Roco kind of guy. Lived there. Immersed myself in the culture. I was probably the only English guy within 20 miles, but I enjoyed it. Good people, good places to live. And I did the commute to UNC Charlotte for over 10 years. So I know that commute and I know the drive. And I think it's like anything. When it comes to club soccer in and around Charlotte, you've got some very good clubs, unbelievable facilities, and clubs that have such size. They have whatever level you're at, they have a place for you to play within that club to an extent. When it comes to Rowan County, I know a lot of clubs have tried to come into Rowan County. FCCA back in the day tried to come in, tried to form a little bit of an allegiance over there at Catawba College. CSA, I think, tried a little bit. So I think clubs have tried to come out there. I think it's when you go and drop a satellite location in an area like an Albemarle or a Statesville, there needs to be enough for them to warrant a staff and a facility and expense. So I think that was kind of why it's never really kicked off out there, because I think Rowan County football, baseball is always going to be God, and that's just how it is. So for those players, they have to hustle. They have to find a home. They have to get closer to a club. We actually have a Rowan County player in our MLS academy at the minute, and he was at Carson High School. So it is possible. And that player actually went to Charlotte Independence and played. So it's, if you want it bad enough, you'll make enough adjustments to your life and things to get around it. But for the parents and the players, you have to make a commitment. You're going to have to sacrifice some things for others. And if it is a case of the means of trying to get out to, a Statesville to get up to Mazeppa Park or to go over to, I think the closest one and the closest location would probably be Concord.
Right.
The clubs have got some locations there. And it's, working with the clubs, asking if there's anybody else in the commute. I know some clubs have players driving an hour, 2 hours away for some of these training sessions. So I think every case is different.
Sure.
I've heard people driving from Charleston to Charlotte. I've heard people driving from Greenville. I mean, Asheville, it's a lot to say you're going to be in a car for 4 or 5 hours every night. That to me would be really tough.
Yeah, that's commitment right there.
But yeah, it's case by case, and I'd be more than happy to chat with anybody that needs any advice on it. But there's some really good clubs in Charlotte and some good people. And North Carolina as a whole, the Carolinas, if you look at the next level after club with universities, it's the best location in the country. Division 2, Division 1, Division 3. I mean, there's a lot of schools in these areas. So it's a highly, highly recruited area if you do get into a club system.
Sure. I got to go back for a second. You mentioned you lived in Faith there for a while, and you may have been the only English guy. I actually have a colleague who is also English that lives in Faith.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
His name's Guy Roberts. You guys obviously have never crossed paths with each other.
Never met him. Yeah, never met him. He was probably the only one buying tea bags from Harris Teeter like I was.
Maybe so. I mean, yeah, you never know. You could have had a meal at the Faith Soda Shop together and didn't even know it. So.
Possibly. We're probably going to miss the Faith 4th of July parade this year. That was always a big one in our house. We used to love
Oh
that.
yeah, absolutely. So for players in general that are in high school right now, you mentioned Carson. Carson actually, for the first time in 8 years, made it to the state playoffs with their boys soccer club or soccer team this past weekend. Unfortunately, they came up short and lost in some penalty kicks at the end of the match, and they're out now. But they actually did show some growth. They were a team that was really starting the season in a rebuilding year, and Coach Lauren West out there, when her and I talked at the start of the season, she said, this is a rebuilding year for us. We don't have a lot of senior leadership, so we're just going to do what we can and make the most of it. Well, lo and behold, they made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. So, but for players, in general, whether it be South row in, whether it be Carson East row in, Salisbury, whatever, what do they need to do aside from clubs to be able to make every attempt to try to make it either to UNC Charlotte, University of North Carolina, or even to make it into the Charlotte FC programs in general?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a two-folded answer there. I think one, from a personal standpoint, what they can control is, making sure that they're leading the right lifestyle, listening to their coach, training really hard whenever they get the chance to play in games, putting themselves out there. Yes, being part of a setup to where they're going to get some exposure. I think, upwards of 16 million people in the Carolinas, for you to get seen by a coach, you have to get seen by them. You have to be in front of them. So whether that's video, via email, whether that's contacting them, a big kind of change in college recruiting at the minute, or in the last couple of years, has been identification camps.
Mm-hmm.
These ones, they're not massively expensive. They're not these long week residential camps. We're talking like weekends. And that's a good time to get in front of those college coaches and really showcase yourself and get to know them. But in terms of, the big one for me is the two that I just said, is the personal development of making sure they're doing everything they can to maximize their potential. And then also getting some exposure and getting in front of college coaches. Because like I say, some of the best players I've recruited, I've recruited at games that I wasn't expecting to see people at, or through mutual contacts, whether the high school coach reached out to me, whether another club coach saw a player play in a different game and said, hey, you need to go watch this number 7. He was very good. And then I find a way to go and watch that player. So you have to do some groundwork. You have to work. I think too much I've seen is good players, very good players, think that I'm a really good player, someone will find me.
Right.
And you can get into your, spring of your senior year and you've not got a college in mind, because you just kind of took your foot off the gas and waited. So emailing, reaching out, attending ID sessions, and really trying to be as visible as you can to college coaches.
Yeah. I certainly appreciate that, Coach. Is obviously very insightful, especially for a lot of these young guys here. Now, coming up on Monday, I'm going to have Jessica Charman speaking with me. She's an analyst, obviously, for the Charlotte FC radio network. Got her own little history of soccer herself, making her way over to the United States, much like yourself, playing in college and then working her way through. So she's going to be speaking specifically to the girls, and I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to, get you here to really speak to the boys. So I certainly appreciate it. But obviously, this is all going to tie in either way. I mean, really, it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy. The process is still very much the same on trying to get yourself seen and make your way up to college ranks or whatever path you decide to go down. So I certainly appreciate the insight and your time today. Before I let you go, holiday season's coming up. So what's the Osborne family tradition? What's the big tradition for Christmas in your household?
Well, I'm a big Griswold follower. That's my favorite Christmas movie, and it's become our family's favorite Christmas movie. So we like to go into the mountains and cut ourselves down a proper Osborne Griswold tree. So that would probably be our annual tradition, to be honest. And it's fun. Obviously, we live so close to the mountains; it'd be rude not to. So we try and come back and try and make sure it's not too big and blow out a few windows. But that's our tradition.
That's awesome. I certainly appreciate that. One last question here, real quick. So we're going to just ask you from back to soccer. We talked about your most memorable moment, obviously, for the season and your most challenging moment. But let's just say for your whole career, most memorable moment for anything you've ever done in your soccer career.
As a player,
player, coach, whatever.
That's a good one. It's a great question. I thought about that. Probably winning the conference was fantastic with UNC Charlotte with Brant that year. We won it, and we had a great time doing it with a great team. Remember that really, really well. And then probably specifically to me, it was probably representing my country for futsal, playing for England. That was a pretty cool experience down in London in front of a big crowd. That was fun. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that was, not that you're an old guy, because you're not, but, again, in America, soccer is, even though it's been around forever, it's just really starting to garner, decent attention, really. But, I'm sure, when you were playing there, we didn't get Premier League over here like we do now with the Peacock.
Yeah, no, yeah. I remember the old NBC Sports days with the guys sitting around like they're in a pub.
Yeah.
I remember that, and the games were on. It was fun. But women's soccer, I know you're bringing on to talk about some women's soccer.
Yeah,
they're really the ones that were driving it for a long time on a national scale, on a worldwide scale. And the only difference I'd say really from a girl's perspective to a guy's perspective to help some families is just the girls do things a little bit earlier,
right?
In terms of recruitment and the identification. But girls' college soccer has helped this country more than any country in the world for women's soccer. So
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Mia Hamm, probably the most recognizable female player in the world for a long time. And I mean, really still today, but, she was definitely the one that I think, kind of really helped things take off. I mean, I know we can go back to that, like I said, the 96 Women's World Cup team, and certainly all those ladies, had some memorable moments out there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's, I think that is what started the spark, and then it just ignited really, when David Beckham came over and things really started to pick up and gain momentum.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, it was Alexi Lalas and Kobe Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Bride. I remember that as a kid because Lalas was his beard. He just looked ridiculous. No one could believe the guy with that beard. But yeah, I remember I came on vacation to Orlando when I was a kid when England didn't make that World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it. That was fun. So that was 94. Was that 94?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Coach Jason Osborne. If for anyone that's watching, if they wanted to come watch your team play, is that an option for them? And if so, how can they do that?
Yep. Our schedule is on a website called ProScore.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the MLS League's websites. I'm sure I can send you a link to put in anything, but we'll be finishing our facility, and our facility will be ready in January, mid-January. So that's where we'll be playing all of our home games after Christmas. But at the minute, we've been playing a lot of our own home games at Ortho Carolina or Matthews Sportsplex.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll be happy to send the schedule over.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll tie it to the blog post that this interview will be attached to. But again, Coach Jason Osborne, I really appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing the end of the current season you're working on, and really what comes next season with Charlotte FC. I really think this club overall, I mean, again, from bottom to top, I mean, I think there are some great things yet to come. Patience is a virtue that I think we all have to have. And, but again, the supporters group seems to be just so avid and, loyal. I know they wear their heart on their sleeve and they get a little upset from time to time, but, I appreciate the passion. I know you certainly do as well. But again, thank you so much for all your time today, Coach.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the time.